Hi everyone, it's Spilios from Stars Over Bucks. In my last video, I walked you through my astrophotography setup and kind of explained how everything works. Tonight, we're actually going to use the setup and capture an image of a galaxy, and I'm going to walk you through the process. So the setup that I'm using tonight is almost identical to the one from the last video. The only difference is I've swapped out cameras, and so tonight we're using the ASI 2600 Pro. So this is a grayscale or a monochrome camera. And in front of that, we have a filter wheel. This contains seven different filters, including color filters and narrowband filters. And that allows us to capture different signals from the targets that we're imaging. All right, first step now that it's getting dark is turning the telescope on. So we've turned the mount on. We've also turned the computer control on, which runs the entire telescope. Now this will make a Wi-Fi connection to the iPad here, and I will be able to control the entire astrophotography setup from my iPad, which makes it really convenient. Right, the next step when setting up a telescope for astrophotography is to polar align it. And the computer software that I'm using makes this really easy. Ultimately, what we want is the mount pointing up to the North Celestial Pole, which is where you'll find the North Star. Right, to start the polar align process, we just put into the polar align setting, we press play. What it's going to do is it's going to take an image and find stars. You'll see here it detected 82 stars. We press next, and the entire telescope is going to rotate about 60 degrees. And then it's going to take another picture, right? Basically, it's going to compare the two photos and be able to let us know how close we are to the North Celestial Pole. Right, the software will tell us what adjustments we need to make in order to have an accurate polar alignment. So you'll see here, I got to move over about 3 degrees to the right and then down a little bit. And so we'll just go ahead and make those adjustments until we get a pretty perfect polar alignment. And the adjustments to the mount, both up and down and right to left, are made with the 4 bolts at the bottom of the mount here. Right, and there we have it. Typically, if I get to under 1 minute, so here we're at 42 seconds, that's close enough for me. So the next step in the process is framing your object. So again, the ASI Air Pro makes this really easy. I can just come over here and I'm going to select which object I want to image tonight. See here, you got a listing of different objects. But what we'll do is we'll go in here and we'll search for the one that I want, which is Messier 82. So we'll just put in M82. There it is. You just press on it, and then down here at the bottom you press go to. Now our telescope will salute to the object automatically. Here it'll do what's called plate solving. It's taking an image of the sky. It'll know exactly where the telescope is pointing, and then it'll make its final adjustments to make sure that the object is centered. Okay, so if you look closely, we can see that our object is actually in the center. It looks very faint right now, just because this was taken with a very short exposure. But what we can do now is center it exactly the way that we want to. So if I just click down here on the bottom, what I'll do is I'll bring up the map. And here I'll show you exactly how it's framed on the camera. So this is M82 here. You can see M81, the galaxy close by. But tonight we're focused on this galaxy, and so we'll just adjust rotating the camera, which will rotate the box here until we're happy with how it's framed. All right, so there's the new framing, and that is pretty close to where we want it. So we can move on to the next step. All right, now that we framed our object, the next step is to go ahead and focus the image. But first what I'll do is I'll go up to our filter wheel, and we're going to change the filter and select H for hydrogen alpha, which is what we want to shoot tonight. We'll go ahead and click that. We'll do a quick 5-second exposure and just make sure that we have stars. In the image, you'll see a lot fewer stars because hydrogen alpha only lets in a very narrow band of light, but There you go. You can see some stars and that central region of the galaxy that we're really trying to capture here. And then I'm just going to press autofocus. And then this will go ahead and focus the image for us. Again, it'll basically shift the focus to different positions, measure the sharpness of the stars, and then ultimately decide on the appropriate setting to get the sharpest star possible. All right, the next part of the process is to start the guiding. So we'll go up here, press on this button here, and you can see we have about 3 or 4 bright stars that are showing up, which should be perfect for our guiding. All right, so this is on the guide screen right now. The telescope is already guiding, but it's important for us to calibrate the guiding before we start imaging. So I'll show you how to do that next. So the first step here is to just stop the guiding. So I press the stop here. Then you go up to the top button, and that will allow you to delete the previous calibration. And then we press the looping button to start the imaging. There's our stars again. And then I will just press the guide button here as well to start the calibration process. So basically the mount is going to provide movements to the telescope, and that will allow the guiding to measure those movements that the mount is sending, which allows it to calibrate the movements it will make while it's actually guiding the image a little bit later on. So this process takes a couple of minutes. I'm going to speed it up so we can get to the end here. Calibration is done. So at the bottom, we can see that our guiding graph is showing the errors that are being corrected for. And then if we go back to our preview screen, we'll also be able to see those guiding corrections up at the top left as well. Okay, at the top left, you can see our guiding is looking really good. Any error under 1 is generally acceptable for me. So we can just go in here, switch to the auto run setting and press on that box there. And this is where we'll select the number of exposures that we want to do. So just press on the plus button. We're going to do light frames, which is what it is when we're taking our images. And then I'll be able to adjust the exposure time. So I just click in the box and I'll enter my exposure time. In this case, we're going to be doing 6-minute exposure. So I'll enter 360 seconds. Do that. I'll change my filter again because we're going to be shooting hydrogen alpha tonight. And then I can put in the number of exposures I want to take depending on how much opportunity I have over the course of the night. So I select 100. We're probably not going to be able to complete that many. Then we'll go back to the main screen here. And then we just press on the button to start the exposures. So there you go. You can see a countdown clock for 360 seconds. And now we'll wait for our first exposure. All right, so the first exposure is finishing. It'll automatically start the next exposure. And now it's loading up to our screen. So there it is. That looks really good. That's a single 6-minute exposure in hydrogen alpha, the raw image. If I zoom in, you can get a closer look at a lot of that detail that we wanted to get coming out of the galaxy. It almost looks like the galaxy is exploding. It's going to look really good when we stack all of the images together and integrate it into our other data. So it looks really great. Here's a time lapse of the telescope tracking the galaxy over the course of the night. You'll notice a few clouds, and so we ended up with about 5 hours of exposure time. Here's a final image that will be added to other images to create a full color image.